Now let's work with route parameters. In this section, we will try to get the very basic idea of route parameters when we need to pass those parameters or when we actually have it in the URL. So in this application, now I'm going to rename this product component. I'll say tutorials instead of products. Let me also first of all rename this products.js to tutorial.js. I'll rename this products to tutorials. Let me just add few lines here. Let's say I have 4 tutorials. I'll say regular expression, JavaScript marathon interview question series, mastering TypeScript, and also mastering React. Now let me just say export default tutorials. I'll go back to the app.js and I'm going to import this. And now in this link, instead of products, I'll say tutorials. And here also, I'm going to say tutorials. Let me also rename these products to tutorials. Now let's just run the application. I'll just save this and go back to the browser to check the output. So when I click on this tutorials, you see that there are various entries here. At the moment, these tutorial lists do not have any links further. But imagine that whenever you click on any of this tutorial, it opens the details of that particular tutorial. It means we need to have another detailed page when each of the item is clicked. That means in the URL, you have the tutorials, and furthermore, you will have the, let's say, regex tutorial title maybe. You may have the tutorial ID or anything, but that is passed as parameter. So let's say I have regex maybe, or I may have JavaScript marathon interview question series, and there are various possibilities we have with this URL. Let me also remind you that when you click these items, this item is not fixed. I mean, after tutorials, whatever URL is added, it might be 1, it might be title, or it might be, let's say, regex. All these values are dynamic. When these items are clicked, this particular value is updated. This dynamic value is basically a parameter passed to the tutorials. So let's go back to the coding, and I'm going to configure another route which deals with various parameters passed to the tutorials. So here I'm going to say route path is equal to /tutorials, which is the fixed parent component path. Now I'm going to have the dynamic values, the parameters. So I'm going to put a colon here, and then I will say title, for example. This title can be anything. I might say tutorial ID or maybe some product ID, but at the moment I just keep it as title. So title is the parameter we expect with the tutorials URL. Now when these parameters are passed, that means when any of these item is clicked, then we want to open a detail component. At the moment, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a file here. I'll say, for example, tutorial details. I'll say tdetails.js. And here I'm going to say const tdetails. I'll return a division, and inside this, I'm simply saying h1 tutorial details, and I end the h1. Let me just say export default tdetails, which is a tutorial details component. Now I'll go to the app.js. I'm going to import the tdetails from components tdetails. And here, now in this empty route, I want to configure the tdetails. So here I say tdetails. This means when any of the tutorial is selected, I want to open the tutorial detail page. So the route is configured here. You can easily make out that when the item is clicked, the parameters have to be passed. Let's go to the browser and let's try to pass some value here. I'll say, for example, test. The moment I do this, you can see that the tutorial details page, that is the tutorial details component, is displayed. This means Now it is not the only tutorials page getting executed, but the tutorial details page is getting executed when we pass the parameter. Remember, when we proceed further, we will see that on click of these tutorials, we will have the URL changed. But at the moment, we do not want to configure at that level. So simply I'm giving a value here. For example, here I say regex. So the moment I pass parameter, it displays tutorial details. Now again, I'm clicking on the tutorials link. If you click on any of these items, the dynamic route, the dynamic value which you have, that value may have different decision making while displaying the detail page. In short, what I mean to say is that the value passed with the parameters, that value needs to be referred in tDetails component. How can you do that? Let's go back to the tDetails.js. Here I'm going to import useParams hook from the React router DOM, and then I'm going to say const params is equal to the hook, that is the useParams, and I can certainly say console log params.title. Title is the parameter name which we already have configured with the route. You can see it here in app.js. This title we are going to receive here in the params object. This object is returned by the useParams hook. In fact, instead of writing this console log here, what I can simply do is I can write the params.title here. Let's save this and we try to check the output. Now I'm going to click on tutorials. Assume that the user clicks on regular expression. At the moment, we do not have link tag applied to this, but I can certainly write the regex value here. Let me press enter. Now you see that along with the tutorial details, we have the regex value. This means the value which we passed as parameter with the URL, it is displayed because we used the useParams hook to get the parameter value. If I change this, let's say regex12, and if I press enter, you see that the new value is updated. In short, this is just a basic idea about how the parameters work with the React router. We are also using the useParams, which gets the value of parameters. Let's talk about the relative questions now. How can you link dynamic routes, or how do you link parameters with a route? So to add dynamic parameters with the route URL, you just have to use colon and parameter name. As we saw in this example where title is the parameter, it means after tutorials / param is given at runtime, and it can be anything. We don't fix it at the development time. The next question is, how will you get route parameter values? Or the same question can be asked, explain the purpose of useParams hook. The useParams hook is used to get the parameter value. It returns an object which has key value pair of URL parameters. Let's practically try with a console log statement. As you can see that title is the parameter name, and at the moment regex12 is the value which is given as a parameter. So useParam hook can be used, and for that practically we are going to implement in next couple of sessions.